Good morning, afternoon, and or evening. This is Derek, Professor Silly Gaming, and I thought it might be useful to make a video describing how best to set up a character for Fallout 4 for new players, players that have never played Fallout 4 before, and because of the show or whatever, decided they wanted to give this game a go for the first time. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say there'll be no spoilers in this video. I don't want to rob anybody of the experience of discovery and having the things happen in the storyline or just in the world that will come as a delightful surprise. So no spoilers. Secondly, I want to reassure anybody entering the Fallout 4 game for the first time that you will make mistakes. That is okay. Mistakes are part of the fun. You should embrace the chaos. Do not worry about making an optimal character. Unlike Skyrim, where you can basically max everything out eventually, that's not really the case for Fallout 4 unless you are planning on playing it forever or using exploits or something like that. Finally, I'm going to strongly recommend that when you start your character, do not set your difficulty up to survival. Not on your first play. When you come back to it after playing through the first time, then you may want to give yourself an extra challenge and play on survival. You notice that when I go to survival, all of the saving stuff goes away. Save on weight, save on travel, save in Pip-Boy. All of that is turned off in survival. You can only save when you rest, and that means you have to find a bed. That can be problematic. Plus, all sorts of other stuff is affected, the chance of catching diseases, what the healing does, etc., etc. Do not play on survival. Now, unlike Skyrim, some planning is recommended. The biggest difference between Fallout 4 and Skyrim is attributes. Across 7 attributes, if we were to put the points evenly, we would have 4s all the way down the board. That is not recommended. I do not recommend doing that. That might make for an interesting challenge at some point, but that is going to reduce the sheer amount of chaos and what I would consider to be fun within this game. I recommend you push at least one of these attributes to 8. And if you really want to embrace the chaos, pushing another one down to 1. Now, we all come into games with a preferred style of playing. And so towards that end, I have set up some basic playing styles and how to incorporate that with the attribute at 8 system that I think will maximize enjoyment for new players. And I'm going to start with melee characters. For a melee character, I would recommend pushing your strength to 8. Why 8, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. The reason I recommend pushing it to 8 and not 9 or 10 is because there are in-game items that will allow you to push all of your attributes up by at least 1 and one of your attributes up by 2 points. I'm not going to give spoilers as to what those are, but they do exist in the game. You can also apply perk points to your attributes to push them up as well. And there are no advantages necessarily to having an attribute go above 10. So 8 is where I'm recommending starting. You will be able to push one of your attributes up to 1 point very early in the game if you find the right item, and it should be pretty easy to find. In order to push one attribute up to 8, I had to pull everything else down by at least 1 point, and that leaves 2 available. Now, I would recommend you don't decrease endurance if you're going to play a melee character. Everything else is optional. So you could push endurance up to 5. You could leave it at 4. I wouldn't recommend having endurance be lower than 4. And then you can put the other attribute wherever. Again, if you want to push one of them down to 1, that will make for, I think, more fun. And you can just adjust them accordingly. Just leave strength at 8 and keep endurance at least 4. Next up, we have the sniper style of playing. And if you're going to play as a sniper, I would recommend having perception be your main attribute. Push that to 8. Now, as far as the rest of the attributes, if you're going to play a sniper, I would recommend having agility at least 4. You could push agility to 5. You could even push it to 7 or even 8 if you wanted to reduce other attributes. There could be some advantage to that. So bring those down, push that up to 8. That said, I would not lower intelligence lower than 3. So keep intelligence at least 3. Agility would be the one I would push up next after perception. Everything else is sort of optional. So you can play around. So perception at 8, intelligent at least 3, agility can be 4, 5, 7, or even 8. And that will make for a really good sniper style character. If you would like to play in a more stealthy fashion, then I would recommend pushing agility up to 8. Now, the thing about agility is that a high agility is going to be naturally good at quite a few different kinds of weapons. So you don't need to have anything else pushed up necessarily to make a good sneaky character as long as your agility is high. If you're looking to have more of a melee style stealth character, then I would have strength at least 4. The agility is what's going to give you your bonuses, but 4 is going to determine base damage, and so strength at least 4, could even push it to 5 for a melee stealth character. If you're going to be more of a melee gun character, you want to keep your intelligence at least a 3. That's going to allow you to make more modifications to your weapons. If you push down intelligence, you're going to only be able to use weapons you find or buy. You're not going to be able to modify your weapons. So keep your intelligence at least a 3 if you're planning on being a sneaky character that uses guns. You could, note, be a stealthy character that uses both by having your intelligence at 3 and your strength at 5. All of the other ones could be brought down and brought up to a good balance to whatever you want. Those don't matter as much for stealth. Let's talk about charisma character. Now, a charisma character, as you can see, the ability to charm and convince others, persuade others in dialogue and whatnot, I would call this the combat-avoidant character. There are perks in the charisma tree that are going to allow you to avoid combat in various different ways. It's also going to allow you to travel with companions in a much better way and have the companions do a lot of the fighting for you. If you want to play as the charmer, as the high charisma, combat avoidant, charming type character, it might not be a bad idea to push endurance up just for the survivability, for more health and whatnot. You could also push perception up to a 4 or intelligence up to a 4 in order to get experience from picking locks and hacking computers, respectively. Perception for the locks, intelligence for computer hacking. That's a good way for the combat avoidant character to earn more experience points outside of combat. Could you do both? You could certainly do both. Bring down strength and luck, and there you have a decent survivability for a charming combat avoidant character that can also pick locks and hack computers by just pushing strength and luck down. I would call the high intelligence character like the tinkerer or the engineer. They're going to be able to build lots of stuff, lots of mods, interact with various technologies in a very interesting way, and the rest of the attributes could be whatever for a high intelligence character. Again, you could push any of these down to 1 and then push other ones up however you see fit, and that won't necessarily affect the usefulness of the high intelligence tinkerer engineer style of play. As far as endurance goes, if you want to have a high endurance, I would call that more of a tank. High survivability, going to be able to survive lots of different things, different parts of the world won't affect the high endurance character as much. Everything else could be placed at whatever, and it will work with this high survivability tank type build. And last but not least, if you just want to embrace the weird, having a very high luck will be the best way to make the world and game as weird and as chaotic as possible. There's various perks within the luck tree that are going to add elements to the game you won't see in any other way. So it's going to be a weird playthrough, but some people like weird. Again, you could move everything else around. There is a perk in the luck tree that's going to increase experience points based on your intelligence level, and it says the lower the intelligence, the more it works. That is true. You could push intelligence down to 1 with a high luck character, and that particular perk will be happening much more often. It's random. But the higher intelligence, the more experience points you get. So it's actually optimal to have intelligence up around a 7. In order to if you want to just maximize your experience points, intelligence up there, you wouldn't need to have luck at an 8 to make that happen, but that would be the way to maximize the amount of experience you're getting as a luck type character. That is not necessary at all. As a high luck character, you could redistribute the perk points outside of luck however you want, and it's going to be weird. So I would recommend pick one, drop it down to 1, and then just play around with them to find something that sounds good to you. Lastly, and I'm not trying to spoil anything here, but when you're leaving the tutorial section and you're going out into the full world to explore and play, you are given the opportunity to change everything about your character as you see fit. So don't worry, if you choose a distribution of special points and then you find that it's just not quite working for you by the end of the tutorial, you can come in and you can change them. So that is my guide on how to set up a character if you've never played Fallout 4 before. Really, the important thing is just have fun. You can build a character based on your preferred playing style, and I would recommend have fun with the attributes. Push something up to 8, maybe push something down to 1, and then play around with everything else in between. And that will create the most chaotic and what I would consider to be a fun experience. If you have found this at all useful, please leave a comment. If you don't know what to say, just leave your favorite emoji. And in the meantime, have fun out there and have a great rest of your whatever. Until next time, ta-ta.